guys, welcome in. I see some faces from last week. If you can hear us, see us okay, please comment in the chat or throw some emojis up. Just want to make sure. We usually start this just a little earlier just to make sure all the technical difficulties are ironed out.
Put a 1 in the chat.
I see some thumbs up. That's a good sign.
Yep.
I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and well, Christmas is just around the corner. Hopefully everybody's getting their shopping done. I can tell you that I'm I'm lagging behind there, but that's okay. I always say we'll get it done this weekend and then we'll wait till the next.
Yeah,
I
that's
did
one
get
way
a
to do
tree
it.
last weekend. I got a tree last weekend and got the lights put
Okay.
up. So we're making some progress.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good progress, I think.
Tanya, thanks for the thumbs up. I'm assuming you can hear us. So we're going to be talking about risk management and risk analysis today. It's going to be an interesting topic. And for those of you that were on last week, we did do a little trivia questionnaire. I got that. I want to do it again based off last week's topic. So we'll throw that up here shortly. But just to get the brain juices flowing before we get started, see where everybody's at. And hopefully this time Jose doesn't critique my answers.
It was I had to help everybody out, because it was one of those ones where anybody that got that one wrong by picking one specific answer, they would have been
Right.
correct.
I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead. I know we're a minute early, but we'll go ahead and just get it going. How about that?
All right.
So
Sounds good.
let me share
Let's rock
screen,
and roll.
make sure everything's looking good, and then we'll get it going. Let me know if you can see Jose.
Yep.
All right. Everybody in chat, I'm gonna again just doing a quick trivia, see where the brain juices are. You can just type in your answer in chat. It's just multiple choice, A, B, C, and D. So first question, what is a key, and this again, guys, this is based off last week's topic. We talked about faxing and facility access controls. So question number one, what is a key security risk associated with traditional faxing in terms of HIPAA compliance? Choices are A, lack of encryption during transmission, B, excessive use of paper resources, C, incompatibility with modern fax machines, or D, over-reliance on digital signatures. Give you guys a second there to put your answers in chat. We got a few coming in. Oh, we got 3. We'll give it 10 more seconds. Good job, everybody. The answer is A. It is lack of encryption during transmission. So let's move on.
Question,
Let's move on to the second question. Again, I try to just take these from the try to get them straight from the presentation last week. So question number 2, what is recommended practice to enhance security when transmitting PHI via fax machines to comply with HIPAA? Sorry, that sounded a bit long, but answers, is it A, avoid using cover sheets to maintain confidentiality, B, store received faxes in an open access area, C, verify destination's number before fax transmission, or D, disclose patient data in fax subject line? Answers are rolling in. Give it another 10 to 15 seconds. Getting a lot of engagement on this question, Jose. I think that's a good thing. So the
Mm-hmm.
answer is C, guys. Great job. It's verified destination numbers before fax transmission. So good job, everybody. Everybody got 100% today. I didn't see one wrong answer. So everybody's on the same page here. That's perfect. So let's dive into the presentation, shall we?
Let's do it.
And Jose, just to confirm, you can still see Screenos okay and all
Yes.
that. Good, good,
Yes.
good, good, good. So so again, hey everybody, again, thank you guys for joining in on another edition of our compliance step-by-step webinars. My name is Ray Walters. I'm going to be today's host, and I am joined and thrilled to introduce yet again, Jose was with us last week, my co-host, Jose Delgado.
How you doing, everybody?
He has over 17 years of experience in business development, healthcare management, and consulting. Also is a owner of a mental health practice. And I wanted to bring him in on this webinar today specifically because Jose, as I mentioned, does consulting as well. And he actually does provide third-party SRAs. So thought this was going to be a good subject to bring him in on. And um, yeah, Jose, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be good to see of how many people, of the 14 people we got, how many have actually participated in a HIPAA security risk analysis for their practice? Because that'll give us an idea of where we need to go, because it can get very complex very fast.
So for those of you that had a risk assessment, either send a comment in the chat, raise your hand. It looks like we got a couple hands raised right now, which is good.
Just give it a few seconds and then we'll kind
Sure.
of go from there. Um, The reason why I asked that though is so that way we can really see, because an SRA, depending on the size of the practice and the resources of the practice, this can be something that can be handled for a couple $1,000s or tens of thousands of dollars. But it kind of depends on how in depth you're going to go. Are there issues that we need to address? Are there court negotiations that have happened and thus caused us to do this on a more frequent than annual basis, all that fun stuff.
So it looks like we had about 3 hands raised, Jose, and
Okay, perfect.
with the
Well, then I'll take
possibility.
that as most people have not participated in a HIPAA security risk analysis before. So to give you the TLDR 5,000-foot view, this is the federal government looking for you to do to your practice what any practitioner does when they first see a patient for the first time in the year. They get a physical done. Let's see where we are, and then let's make a plan for how we're going to do better. The federal government, as with all bureaucracy, is not looking for perfection. They're looking for improvement from one year to the next. So the idea is when you've gone through and all 280 different measures and you've figured out where your deficiencies are, you want to sit down with your executive team and figure out what we're going to attack. Now, keep in mind, you never want to be perfect, even if you want to be perfect. But to help you out, the federal government every couple of years moves goalposts anyways, so you'll never be perfect. But that's pretty much the TLDR. There's three major components of this in the security, the technical, and the administration. And then the federal government is not just looking for policies. They're looking for procedures. So it doesn't mean anything if you have a policy, but you don't have a procedure. Basically you're getting half credit. You put down the formula on your algebra test, but you didn't do anything with formula. So we want to make sure that you know how that all works. For new practices, I always say, look, go for the low hanging fruit first. Focus on that. Focus on the common sense stuff, because you can cover a lot of ground by covering common sense. Then you just have to document. If you don't document, it didn't happen. So, all right, cool. Let's go.
No, good point, Jose. And obviously, we're going to be elaborating on this as well. And we do this on every presentation. Just want to give you guys a brief background on HIPAA compliance. We were established in 2013 by leading healthcare professionals. We specialize in healthcare compliance, specifically in HIPAA privacy, HIPAA security, OSHA, and Medicare compliance regulations. Our mission's simple. We want to help streamline the compliance process for healthcare organizations, healthcare students, and business associates alike by offering them tailored online solutions. And yeah, without further ado, let's dive into it, Jose. The objectives that we're going to be talking about today, obviously, as Jose has mentioned, understanding the security management process, exploring the importance of risk analysis, emphasize those key concepts, learn the step-by-step process of risk analysis. And then obviously, Jose, I know you didn't mention this, but I know you mentioned
Yep.
to put a
Yep.
slide in here
We
about
actually
it, but
I meant to make sure that you put that in there, but
yes, yes.
I'm glad that you and I were on that same ESPN link.
Yes, we were on the same link, and we were going to talk about the new safer guides. It is newer guidelines, correct? The
They are new. We'll get into it later, but
Yeah, yep,
right now the safer guides is the federal government looking to find more information. You're not going to get penalized for not doing it, but it's something to where it's kind of like the initial meaningful use kind of deal, which
mhm,
meaningful use will come back up into all this because now it's called macro and MIPS, but we'll go into it. So
right, right.
um
But well, let's go ahead, Jose. Let's talk
so
about
let's
yeah, let's
Yeah, so the security risk analysis is made up of different sections that are standards, and then certain things that are required and then addressable.
yeah,
Many moons ago, during the Obama administration, when meaningful use was out, if anybody remembers that, you can remember that boondoggle of, hey, if I have an EHR, I can qualify for the carrot, or now you get the stick. They'll start reducing Medicare rates if you're not using an EHR. Now it's been many years. They couldn't do meaningful use stage 2 or 3 because the technology is not right and the security is not right. So they moved off of that and into MACRA and MIPS. So now if you're looking for that extra bonus point and not getting hit with the Medicare hammer, then you really want to cover this. Although it has been in the HIPAA legislation since its inception in the 90s to do a risk analysis. It was just understood as a HIPAA privacy and
right,
risk analysis rather than a HIPAA security one. But now with the advent of technology, you really don't use paper much anymore, unless you're faxing still, or if you're old school, even old school provider or owner of a practice that's like, yeah, EHRs can pound sand because I don't want them having my data or whatever conspiracy theory they like to go with, which sometimes they're not crazy. It just kind of depends. But we can kind of address those one by one.
that absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And Jose, having said that, um, obviously compliance, it's not just an option, right? It's a legal
So
obligation, right? So
yes, so it is absolute. So the federal government has made this a requirement since the mid 90s when HIPAA was passed. Whether they have been using the fine hammer that they have for other things was not the case until the PPACA was passed during the Obama administration, where at that point in time, CMS, OIG, the HIPAA security risk analysis and HIPAA fines truly became a matter of assume they are guilty and then they have to prove their innocence.
right,
So it's very much a matter of this is your first line of defense. If you haven't done one, then when the auditors come through, this is very easy for them because they just say, pull out your checkbook. This one's going to hurt. Because anybody who remembers any kind of HIPAA fine, it's by incident. It's not like, oh, you caught me once, it's one fine. No, it's per
per
issue.
incident. Yep.
There's going to be a fine attached. And if you don't even have the physical, this is like playing Monopoly and you don't know the house rules because you're not going to know what to have ready for an auditor if you don't even have the test that they're looking for. So just to give a quick example, I imagine most of our clients are smaller offices. You have less than 50 employees. I guarantee you don't have an anonymous HIPAA security hotline for whistleblowers. It wouldn't make sense to because you know everybody's voice. And it's expensive to man
Yeah.
a hotline like that. But that's something on there. So if you don't have the SRA done and they're going to go, boom, I know you don't have that. You're a 3 provider, 4 provider office. All of a sudden, you're at $100,000 in fines, and we haven't even started asking questions. So this is something to where that HIPAA security risk analysis is that first barrier of, okay, we want to bury these auditors in paperwork because all these auditors are going to make money based on how much they recover. That's why the people that initially had the contract for this was an accounting firm. They weren't even healthcare related. They were an accounting firm out of Northeast. I want to say they were out of Delaware or Maine. Now a couple different areas have their own, and now a bunch of different alphabet agencies can do this on their own. So you want to make sure that this is just your first line of defense.
Jose, to add to that, if you've been if you've been in practice, let's just say I'm a chiropractor, right? I've been in practice
Yep.
for 4 years and I've never done an SRA. Is
Yep.
that a big deal? I mean, and
Absolutely.
let's just say I
Absolutely. You
decided to
really
do one now, right? So what?
Well, so it's not a situation where, let's say I've been in practice for 20 years and I've
Okay,
never done one until now.
yeah,
There's nothing to say that, hey, I didn't know I had to do that. Well, that's okay. At least you're attempting. If you can come in and, as us, we've worked with legal teams before on defending clients, hey, they didn't know, or we can start proving they didn't have the resources to do something as in depth as the federal government would want, but we can show the intent of them following the law in a couple of other different ways. So it's never too late to start doing this kind of thing, but it is something that you really want to address and start putting a little bit of money away. It's for smaller offices, it's really not as expensive as you would think it would be, but it can get up there if you're a larger office or if you need to go a little bit more in depth because you're concerned that your specialty is one that's always aimed for. If you're a
sure,
pain management is always on the list of people they want to go after. Ortho, cardiology, anybody that's doing a lot of procedures. So, sometimes rheumatology is on the list every couple of years because of all the all the low level infusions they do. And by
sure.
low level, I mean, so cool. So yeah, that kind of gives you an idea. And then basic concepts like what he's just put up, you really want to take a look and see, okay, are we vulnerable to anything that's going on here? Are we at risk? Let's see what the risk actually is. So again, let's use that hotline example.
Mm,
Okay, we don't have a hotline, but we don't really need one because we know all 20 people that work for the firm. So there's no real way that they're going to be anonymous, but we can put in that we are addressing these issues through a different manner because it's an addressable piece. So, it's really one of those, we want to take a look at that. Now, an easy one that's a vulnerability is, hey, between me and my IT company, we don't have an inventory list. Well, that's a bloody problem.
oh yeah,
How do you know the IT is doing what you pay them to do if they don't have an inventory list? How do you know that everything you want protected is being protected to the manner by which you want it protected if you don't have an inventory list? The bigger you are, the more people that have access to the company accounts, the more important this is because who's buying devices? We have one client that's got an 50, 60 offices, 100 providers. Way too many people have access to the business account. To get an inventory list, their HIPAA security officer has literally been trying to work with IT for 2 years to get one, and he knows he's not even halfway. And that's
I
something
guess
that, again, common sense. You would
right.
think you have a list for all this because you're paying for all this, but you'd be shocked. So the SRA will give you a report. Any SRA worth its salt that's going to stand up to court or stand up to an auditor is going to be able to assess for you and show you easily where you're at risk, what the risk is for your environment. So there are some things that you can't change, but there's a
Right.
lot that there are.
So I
So we're talking about some of this stuff, but
yeah, yeah.
um, one of the ones, like some of these, they're pretty self-explanatory, but some of the ones that are going to be a little bit harder to mitigate the vulnerability or mitigate the issues. For example, Ray, you and I live in the Southeast.
Yes.
Hurricanes are not a matter of if, but they're a matter of when. Flooding is a matter of when. It's just a situation that we deal with. But we need to have policies and procedures in place for those kinds of natural disasters, and that's part of HIPAA. So let's have them. Let's get it all set up, and epi compliance helps you do that with the natural
Contingency
disasters
planning. Yep.
policies. And then you just gotta use that scope and update it and modify it to fit your practice, your specific business model. But one of the ways that you want to get around this and by get around this, I mean, and you have your procedure in place, is when random things happen that inconvenience you throughout the year. So let's say, hey, we've got a plan for a hurricane or flooding, or when the power goes out and the power frigging went out. Well, we got to go to our contingency plans. Let's go to this. Let's go to that. Let's go to that. Then you write down a report when all is said and done. Hey, the team did well. They didn't panic. Hey, the team did awful. We need to do more training. But guess what? You just set up a way to help protect yourself by just dealing with
Exactly.
normal crap that happens to you on a day-to-day basis. So it's not that we want to make things difficult or that the federal government is trying to make things more difficult. We just got to be more clever about how we deal with what they're asking of us. Level risk determination. These are things like, hey, we've been talking about this last couple of weeks, like who has access to the fax machine, who has access to company cell phones, company devices, where are company devices logging into the EHRs or logging into our imaging software because, maybe they're grabbing an image from somewhere or lab results or something like that. So we want to take a look at what are the issues, threat occurrences, same thing. Are we in a nice neighborhood? Or are we in a bad neighborhood? Okay, if we're in a bad neighborhood, what kind of things can they steal? Do we have an alarm system? Are our doors locked? We want to be able to go and show that not only do we have those policies, but they've been tested. Hey, every morning I got to turn off the alarm. Hey, every time we leave, every evening when we leave, the alarm goes on. We know that it works. Why? Because when somebody forgets their code on a 3-day weekend, we get a phone call from the alarm company. Simple things like
Exactly.
that. So we just
What's
want to document those kinds of
what are
situations.
exactly document. What's a common thing that you see? I guess a common threat or vulnerability that you see when doing conducting these SRAs in person.
So the big issues I normally see is that there is a discrepancy between what the executive team believes the policies are
Okay.
and what the line employees believe the policies are. I'm going to completely take the providers out of this because anybody that's in the field right now knows that providers are your biggest vulnerability because the by and large opinion is that they don't care about compliance. They don't get paid to do compliance. That's nonsense. Their job is to take care of the patient. Screw everything else that has to do with anything else. They only
Agree.
take care of the patient, right? So then it's admin's job to go behind them and make sure that they're not drawing a larger target than they already are for the practice. So, but usually it's something as simple as if I have multiple locations or I have multiple people on an executive team, there will be a misunderstanding on who's the HIPAA security officer or who's the OSHA officer or who's the HR person. And you'll start seeing where the different factions lie within an office. Hey, I believe this person's that. Oh, I believe that person's that. So you really want to make sure that simple and clear guidelines are there. Other things are, hey, where are your policies and procedures? Most employees are like, it's in a binder in the office manager's office. If you're using a company like Epi Compliance, I don't know why you killed so many trees to print that crap out.
Keep it online.
The whole point is to have it online. So that way
Keep
it
it
updates
online.
for you. So it's something to where you really want to just make sure that your employees have the common sense answers, like that's the big stuff. Um,
And they want
other
to see
things would
that,
be like,
well, in terms of what the federal
okay,
government's looking for as well, they want to see that you're keeping those policies up to date annually, right? So,
they want to see that, but they also want to see that you have proof that you're following through.
exactly.
So
Yep.
different little things like training throughout the year, that's the whole point of the annual training. You want to go and be like, hey, when somebody makes a boo-boo, instead of just hitting them with the band hammer or hitting them with the firing hammer, use it as a teaching moment for everybody.
Right.
So that way you can kind of get around it. So yeah, so it's just it's the SRA is a tool to help you work throughout the year. You just have to understand what it is and then identify what you want to progress on.
Good points, Jose. And sort of leads me to my next slide here. I know you already talked about it. You mentioned, the SRA is sort of your physical, right?
Yep.
Um, how
Yep, the
often?
security management plan that should be attached to an SRA is
Yes.
your this is what we're going to do about it throughout the year. This is what we're going to address. Now, I would never recommend that you have one that locks you into a certain due date because life happens and that can get very difficult very fast, but you want to have goals in mind. So, it's all about execution, because you can have the best idea in the world, but if your execution is crap, you're not going to get anything done, So go for the low level stuff, then work your way up. We have some of our clients that have been doing a great job over the last couple of years, and there's these two or three things that they just cannot get over the hurdle, and that's okay because you're improving in other areas. So
I,
you just want to show improvement the whole time.
I think that's the idea too, right? As long as you're
Yeah.
showing some sort of gradual improvement, doesn't matter. It could be
Well, I mean, it
it could be
always
a
matters.
small percentage, but
Yeah, it
not too
always
much.
matters, but it gives your legal team, your consulting team,
Right.
it gives us a defensible position if something were to occur. We
Right.
had one client that had their server hacked from an update from their IT. How are you supposed to plan for that as the practice? Doesn't matter. Federal government says that's your breach, that's your problem.
Right.
What are you going to do about it?
Right.
So then you got to go in and you got to do a whole bunch of stuff. You don't want to be on those lists, man. That's not fun because then they know, yes, this person's got money because they just paid us. We'll be keeping an eye on them for the next couple of years. So then you have to do even more work to show that you're doing something. And this isn't to scare you. This is the idea of this is not to scare you guys, but it is to let you guys know that hey, this may look like a daunting task, but how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. You can't look at the whole task and be like, I can't, there's no way, I don't have the time. But if you take a little piece here, a little piece there, and document this situation that occurred, you can just incrementally do better.
Do you recommend for those maybe interested in doing an SRA, whether they do it at the beginning of the year or towards the end, or does it
So
matter?
the federal government says annual.
Right.
I personally am of the opinion that the end of the calendar years tends to be a little bit easier for offices just because more people are taking time off or sometimes in their specific office the workflow is a little bit easier so they can handle doing
Sure.
something like this, but I would definitely do this at a consistent time every year. If you want to do it for macro and MIPS, for example, this coming year, you need to have it started before the 31st. You don't need to have the report, but if you haven't done one yet and you want to be able to check that box and attest to it, you need to get it done. Now, the federal government is also of the opinion that if you do it on your own, it's not a risk analysis, it's a risk assessment. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but does not meet that requirement. So if you have been doing that, you really should reassess what you're doing because they're a little bit different. One is a self assessment, one is an analysis done by a third party. Who is going to treat themselves poorly on a self assessment? Nobody. It's just a reality of life. So if an auditor comes in and sees that you're the one that did the assessment for your own practice, it's not going to look good. It's you need to work with a third party, and there's quite a few out there. I mean, obviously, shameless self plug. At Taino Consultants, we handle that. We can handle that, and we can do a pretty good turnaround on, especially for this time of year. But it's something where you really should look at it annually.
And for those of you that don't know, Tano Consultants, they are a partner of ePHI Compliance and do conduct third-party SRAs on behalf of our customers. And somebody like Jose, and if anybody is interested in learning more about this, or perhaps the process of these SRAs, we do free consultations as well. Obviously, there's going to be some information sent out after this webinar on that. If you're interested, you can also put something in chat. Make sure we'll reach out to you directly to get that scheduled. 15-minute conversation. Jose, the next slide is, well, here we are. We made it. The
Yeah.
safer guides.
So, I mean, this is again, federal government's mining for information. They want to know what everybody's doing, and they want to see if we're going to self-report. If you do it, great. If you don't do it, there's no penalty here yet. Because right now they're just trying to figure out what everybody's admitting to doing. Once everything is said and done, give it 4 or 5 years, the safer guides will just probably either a portion of it or all of it will be folded right into HIPAA security. Linda, we'll definitely go over that here in a minute. I see your question up here. Ray, make sure you
We'll
note that one so we
address.
can go over
I
that.
got it. Thanks, Linda.
So yeah, so the safer guides, I mean, they're looking to see what everybody is doing in regards to macro and MIPS. And if you don't know what macro and MIPS are, God bless you. You're not doing billing then. But if you are an admin for your practice and you don't know what macro and MIPS are, ask the billing department questions, because if they can't give you solid answers as to what they're doing, you could be missing out on money that your practice could definitely benefit from. But you could also be getting hit with the 1 or 2% that Medicare is not paying you this past year for not complying with macro and MIPS. So you really want to just go and take a look. They've got all kinds of components and everything to it. Right now, like I said, monitor it, but don't panic about it. All right. You've got enough to worry about. That right there, there's nothing to it. They're not going to give you fines for not doing it. You should be doing most of this stuff anyways. It's the documentation that's a big difference. So
How new is this legislation, Jose?
a year, maybe. I think they just came. Fact check me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that the guidelines themselves actually just came out in the last year.
Gotcha.
They've been talking about the safer guides for about 2-3 years, though.
I would assume that I could find this information on cms.gov, right?
Sure, if you've got the time to kill.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm not gonna fact check
um,
you right now,
See,
sir.
well, no. What I mean
I
is,
believe you.
you'd be better off, instead of going to CMS or HHS and trying to find it directly. You'd be better off just going to Google and asking how the safer guides are,
Gotcha.
and what the safer guides are. You'll get a better analysis from a third party than trying to find anything on HHS or CMS, because
It's true. They gotta.
anybody that's tried to use CMS and HHS to find information, if you don't know where to look, you will never
It's a
ever find it.
rabbit
I mean,
hole.
that goes for the final rules that they're supposed to submit out. It goes to everything. So, yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
solutions. We want to be able to use an SRA to figure out where we have exposure. To use the legal term, right?
And when you
Where
say
do we have
SRA, you
exposure?
you prefer a third party SRA over the. Yeah.
Absolutely. The federal
Yeah.
government prefers a third party. Even with our mental health practice, we use a third party, because it's just, and no, I don't do it for my practice. I have had that question before. And no, I don't. Because then I'm just doing the same thing, even if it's
Right. Right.
so it's just something, it needs to get done. If for nothing else, then it's your first line of defense. For the same reason it's your first line of defense, real quick, only the executive team should have access to this document. Because for the same reason that this is your first line of defense, it can also be used to hang you because of the Whistleblower Act. You don't want a disgruntled
Right.
employee, which I've seen before, get a hold of the SRA and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get them here," and then you have a problem. The one client that we had that did that, we were able to save their bacon, pull their bacon out of the fire, if you will, because we were able to use the SRA that they were using to hang the practice as a way to say, no, no, no. They've been doing it the last couple of years. Look, they've been improving every single year. The employee before they were terminated
Mm.
should have brought this up to management so it could be addressed more quickly, but it has been parts of it have been addressed throughout the years and period of time and so on and so forth. And hey, this is a disgruntled employee, so you can't really use that against us, so on and so forth. But so
Bottom line is they
periodic
got it
reviews.
done, right? They
Yeah.
they
So
had
I
they
mean,
had something to show.
yeah, that one was an interesting case.
Yeah.
When it comes to periodic reviews, you want to take a look at it or just write down on a sticky note or on a whiteboard things that you want to address throughout the year. So that way, you don't have this 65, 45-page document that's just great for falling asleep to because they're pretty dry. The reports are dry because hey, did the practice comply with this? Or with this, or with this, or with this, and it just goes down the 280 measure list. This is where they get a hold of your BAAs, see if your BAAs are doing anything. They're what they're supposed to be doing. So different things like that. If you're
It's
not
not all
documenting,
just
it
about
didn't happen.
policies and procusures. They want to see that training's
They
been
want to see that
done.
your team knows it. So
Exactly.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you have the
Yeah.
policy down and you have the procedure down,
Yeah.
but your employees don't know what it is. One of the big ones is, what is a sanction policy? Well, most of the time employees look at me with like I've got three heads, sanction policy. And I'm like, yeah, sanction policy. What happens if you do a no-no? Like for us here in Northeast Florida, there's like 50 Dr. Patels. What if you send information to the wrong Dr. Patel? What if you give information out to a patient's ex-wife or ex-husband, but
Right.
they're still on the list for you to be able to give them information? Like, how do we deal with this stuff? What is the sanction policy? What happens to that employee? What happens to that information? That's all part of it. So this is stuff that you can do to train everybody. So
And again, this
yeah.
is no good. Appreciate that, Jose, and guys. Appreciate you being in on this webinar. Don't go yet. We are going to have a little Q&A here at the end. Just wanted to share some info. Obviously, EPI compliance. What Jose has been talking on in terms of the sanction policies, procedures, business associate agreements, training. That is all stuff that we cover here at EPI Compliance. If you don't have a program in place or you're doing things in-house, we're here to help streamline that process. We offer those solutions to you. We do offer, and I mention this on every webinar, and Jose, actually, we talked about it last week, the OSHA course, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I was wrong. I was wrong.
For those of you that were not here last week, I had mentioned this is a federal mandate. OSHA requires any new hires to train your employees in OSHA related within 10 days. EPI compliant, and Jose thought it was 30, right? Was it 30?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did think it was 30. That one
yeah.
I did get confused by, and that's HIPAA security and HIPAA privacy.
No worries. Hey,
But yeah.
always forgiven.
Yep.
We
I'm glad
do
we didn't put
offer
money on that one.
we do yeah. We do offer a free solution for that. If any of your staff is in need of OSHA training, you can head on over to epicourses.com. They can register individually. Again, free training, free OSHA training. They take the course, get a downloadable PDF certificate at the end. Boom, you're good to go. As I mentioned, we have some more comprehensive solutions as well. If you're looking for something a bit more robust and does it all for you, we have an EPI Compliance Pro package. As I mentioned, it includes your policies, procedures, your sanction policies, ongoing training for your staff, business associate agreements, and audit defense as well. Other than that, we do offer a training bundle as well. I think, Linda, this might answer your question. You asked, do you have a listing of mandatory trainings a company needs to provide its employees when working with a healthcare client? Jose, I would say our training bundle is probably going to be the
Absolutely. So Linda, to answer your question, the annual training and the initial training can be done in the EPI compliance platform.
yes.
There is another component to HIPAA security and HIPAA privacy, which is ongoing training. It's gonna be done at any period of time, any point in time. It can be done in 100 different ways. Let's keep it simple. if you're an epi compliance customer, you get a security reminder. You print that security reminder out, and you put it right by your OSHA poster in your cafeteria room, your break room. And you put another piece of paper beside it with a bunch of lines, and you tell all your employees, hey, when your phone is dead, look at this thing real quick and sign this before the end of the month.
And these security
Done.
reminders are ongoing on our platform. They go out once a month. And yeah.
Yep. So that this way that counts and you're done. Now, if there's something interesting that happens that you hear through the scuttlebutt of administrators in multiple offices or in a small community, or the news hits somebody with something, and then you actually see the office is getting into trouble, then you can use that exact case as ongoing training. Hey, look at what the dum dum did over here. Don't do that. If you want to know more, go to channel 4, channel 5, whatever the channel is, and go through it that way. And if you're extremely nosy and extremely bored, you can also go to any of the alphabet websites that deal with HHS and CMS and OCR, and you can see who's been getting into trouble lately, because they have to report the breaches. So you can really see how big some of these breaches get. And
I'm going to make that a point in the email that I'm going to send out. I'm going to provide you guys a link where
yep.
you can search these
And you can search them by state, you can search them by whatever,
zip
and
code.
you'll see that these organizations, there's not any of them that are immune. Kaiser Permanente just got in trouble not too long ago. There are teaching hospitals that are constantly getting in trouble. I think Mayo just got hit with one. So I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
The state of Alaska ended up owing HHS like couple $1 million for screwing something up. Indian Affairs of somewhere in the Midwest got in trouble a couple years ago, and you can see the kind of breaches. Right now it's a lot of data breach, but you can always take a look at that stuff if you want to be nosy or bored. So
I'll send a link out for that as well. If you guys are, like Jose said, if you guys get bored, look into it. It's interesting. It's interesting information. Feel better about your life, and the fact that it's public too.
It has to be public because the breach was so large.
Right.
So, do we have any other questions real quick? Because I know that we're running short.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and open up for a quick Q&A, guys. I appreciate your time. Obviously, went a little over, but I appreciate your guys' engagement. I hope you guys found this valuable. Yeah, we're going to open up for just a quick Q&A. If you guys have any questions, concerns, please put it in chat, and hopefully we'll be able to answer.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, some of the stuff that's on that OCR website, when they take a look at it,
list out the dollar. I think it lists everything out to the exact fine and dollar amount.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't always say the fine amount, because they will report it before it's run through the negotiations and completed the investigation. Yeah, so they have to, once they report it, when you have a breach and you report it to the authorities, they will put you on that website then. And it'll just say that it hasn't been completed yet. And then once it completes, depending on how big you are, you may even make local news or healthcare news, and then fun stuff. So
nobody's got anything.
Cool.
This might be the first webinar where I haven't had anybody ask a question.
Well, Linda had the one.
Linda did. Okay, Linda, you do count. Sorry, you do count.
Don't forget Linda. Cool.
So all right. Yeah, well, hey, guys, or Jose, again, appreciate you joining on this one today. And
no problem.
Obviously we'll be seeing you on some future webinars. We do have one more left for this month. We will be taking a break after next Tuesday. We'll be taking a 2-week break, obviously, just for the holidays and whatnot. But we're gonna keep doing these things in January. But we do have one next week, and we're gonna be expounding a little bit further on the risk management process. Jose, I'm working on getting your dad on that one, but I know he's a busy man. So
which one? So what is the topic?
Just risk management process.
Oh, okay. So just identifying it and going into further detail, or after the SRA? What do we do?
Essentially, I was gonna talk a little bit about, or have you talk, well, have your dad talk a little bit about both after the
Okay.
SRA and obviously following that plan of action and
Okay.
how to keep that organized, etc. But guys, we'll be sending you guys some information as well. Appreciate your time. Linda, thank you so much. And Jose, it's a pleasure. And we'll see you
As
guys
always.
hopefully on the next week's webinar as well. And if we don't, hey, we'll be back in January. Hope you guys have a happy holiday in the meantime. Okay.
Do we know is it gonna be the first Tuesday in January?
Uh, as of right now, yes. Why?
No, no, I'm just curious. Because I think that's like the second or something like that. I don't even remember.
I'll have to double check, but as far as I know, God dang it, I gotta go in and look at that. But no, I think we're still gonna be we're gonna do it regardless. So,
Okay.
but cool. All righty, guys. Well, you take care, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thanks, Jose.
Have a good one, guys.
All right.
Bye.